landscaping architecture. It's hard to read.
But
Yeah. All right. What's the date today? July 10th? July 9th. Call the July 9th, 2024 Colonial School Board meeting to order. Please rise as Mr. Robin Crossan leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
I have none.
All right. With none, do I hear a motion?
motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
All right. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. Are there any questions or comments from the board? That should be backwards, isn't it? No. With no questions or comments from the board, all those in favor, please signify with saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. It's gonna mess with me all night. 1st of July, right? All right. Motion's approved.
So now here,
All right. At this time, the board president and myself will turn over the gavel to the executive assistant, Dr. Menzer, until the nominations are received for the board president position. Does anybody have a nomination for president of the Board of Education?
I have a nomination for the board president. I would like to nominate Mr. Chris Pique.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Chris, I messed that up. I'm sorry.
Oh, you messed up?
it's
Yep.
me. I'm in short. So are there any motions on the floor for nomination for board president?
Yes. I nominate Chris Pique for school board president.
Motion on the table. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have motion moved by Ms. Smith, seconded by Dr. Dorsey. At this time, I'll ask for a roll, do I do a roll call or can I do a voice, Ted?
You actually should ask if there's any other nominees.
Well, I thought we don't do each one and then vote, and then if there's another one, we don't.
You take the nomination for Chris,
Okay, so now,
and then you should say, is there any other nominees? If not, then the motion goes in place, but that's okay, so.
all right, so are there any other motions for nominees for president? Hearing none, I'll do can I
Make a motion nominations be closed.
make a motion that nominations be closed?
Second.
You first, so,
No,
can I get
first.
a
I
motion?
move that.
Oh, I thought Ted made it.
No, I did.
You made the
Ted
motion?
made the-
Oh,
Ted made
Ted
the
made the
motion.
motion? All right, Ted made the motion, Christine seconded. So, pausing the camera for a second, somebody be writing all this down so we get it right next year, because I feel like I've done this 4 years in a row, and I don't think I've ever gotten it right yet.
Maureen, we'll get together.
I was about to say, at some point, we just have to hire Ted as a consultant.
All right,
And he actually will
so,
get paid.
since nominations are closed, now, Mr. Laws, do I take a roll call vote?
The secretary can cast a single vote, or a member can cast a single vote.
I can cast a single vote because there's only one nominee.
That is correct.
I will cast my single vote and announce that Mr. PQ is now the board president, and I will turn the gavel over to him for the continuation of the nominations.
All right. I like the better one he was running. There we go. Thank you very much
Every year.
for it. And then, do I have nominations for the vice president of the Board of Education?
Nominate Robin Cross.
Okay. And now I ask for another nomination, correct?
Second.
Or second or any other nominations? Or no, I have to have a second, right? Okay. Do I have a second for the nomination of Mr. Robin Crossan?
Second.
Okay. All right. So that's so moved by Mr. Laws, seconded by Mr. Crossan.
Any other nominations?
Are there any other nominations for vice president for the school board?
I would nominate Chris Smith.
All right. I second that. All right. And are there any other nominations for the vice president role for Board of Education?
Move nominations be closed.
All right. Do I have a second for nominations to be closed?
Second.
All right, as moved by Mr. Laws, seconded by Dr. Dorsey. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those against, say nay. All right. Nominations are closed, and what is the next step on this?
You have to take a vote for the two individuals. We'll,
It's a roll call vote.
Roll call?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so going down the line, starting with Dr. Dorsey.
You put it, you vote for each one, you put the name forward and then vote, you don't like pick a winner,
Right.
you have to vote, cast a vote for each, right?
So it's a yea or nay?
So it's a yea or nay on
Yeah.
Robin's up first for a vote,
Okay,
and then you go to Christine second.
gotcha.
didn't have anybody run.
We didn't have anybody run last
Well,
year.
no, we did, yes,
Yeah, we did.
Yes,
Same
we did.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did it the same way.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't remember that, okay.
I thought we did it, both of them together, and each one
No.
individually named a name.
Yeah,
You could do it, you could do it
that's
either
what
way.
happened last
That
year.
Is that what we did
and it
last year?
ended with Miss White.
Okay,
Yeah, you can do it either way.
we can do it either way? Alright, we'll
Okay.
do it that way
I
then.
like that way.
Okay,
All right, starting from, starting with Dr. Dorsey.
Chris Smith, oh, just saying names,
Yes, sir.
Chris Smith.
All right, Chris. And Mr. Laws.
Mr. Crossen,
All right. Ms. Smith.
I vote for myself, Chris Smith.
Didn't see that coming. All right, Mr. Handy.
Chris Smith.
All right. Mr. Crossan.
Yours truly.
Why you always have me go last?
well, you're not,
Obnoxious.
he's doing the solid this time, he's going last.
I took a very wise tip from my great mentor. Kept my mouth quiet this time. All right, Ms. White.
I don't know. What did I vote for last year?
Alright,
It's up to you.
Up to you.
I think I did Miss Smith. I would go with Mr. Crossan this year. Give it a balance.
That's the rest of me.
Thank you, and I didn't give you anything about it.
you can do it.
It still backfired. That's funny. All right, and then with myself, I'm gonna stick with my nomination. As much, Robin, I love you very much, but I'm gonna vote for
yeah.
Chris Smith. Yep, just to keep things flowing. And then with that, that gives 4-3 votes for Miss Smith. And then nothing else we have to do except just gavel it in, right?
That's it.
All right. Votes 4-3. Mrs. Smith will be the vice president for this school year.
Congratulations, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Again.
I think my favorite part is congratulations for us having this great board.
We're not done yet. so.
Yeah, I know, we still have.
I'm just saying for that. I love that everything's done with a smile. That's what I love. Unlike some other things we got going on here in the county, so. All right, so looking at nominations, will be made for the DSBA.
Nope,
Nope, nope.
nope, nope. you
That's
passed.
next on my list. Did I miss
You
something?
got one, this one here you were writing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Newly elected board president will appoint the superintendent, Dr. Jeffrey Menzer, to the position. All right, I appoint Dr. Jeffrey Menzer to the position of executive secretary of the board in accordance with Delaware Code.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All I have to say is thank you, Miss Leary. I'll tell you what. All right, so moving on. Nominations will be made for DSBA Board of Directors representative, and then a vote will be taken.
Question,
Yes, sir.
would the board be against a single, motion to reappoint the same representatives from last year?
I support that and agree completely. Make this a lot
Are
quicker.
you gonna make that a motion, Ted, put it on?
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to get a feel for it before I do that.
Well, I would second that.
And I would make a motion that if there's no complaint or question from any of the existing representatives, as we maintain the same representatives for the committees as we did last year for the next 4.
And just to reiterate who that was Ron as the representative for DSBA, that was Robin as legislative, That was Dr. Dorsey as alternate for legislative, and that was Chris Smith for alternate for DSBA.
Right.
All right,
Yes, that is a motion.
and then I have a second from Mrs. Smith that she already said, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? All right. Just to make sure we're all good, I'll just do a roll call on that. Going down from Dr. Dorsey, just give me a yay or nay. Dr.
Yay.
Dorsey?
Yay.
Mr.
Yay.
Laws?
Yeah.
Ms. Smith?
Yay.
Mr. Handy?
Yay.
There you go. Yay, and yay myself. All right, unanimous.
Just a little bit of history behind that. It wasn't until about the last 7 or 8 years that those positions were, those committees assignments were appointed by the board president.
That's correct.
Is that the way it used to be?
Yep.
Probably that was discussed now.
We had a couple of board members decided they wanted to put it to a vote, but, you know,
I thought that was the way it's supposed to be anyway.
what?
Who would you just say? I thought that's the way.
Appointed by the president.
Yeah,
That's, but then the district
changed it.
changed it
Okay.
based on the, was that following George into Dorothy's tenure, Ted, if you recall?
No,
No, it was after that?
it was at the end of George's tenure.
End of George's tenure.
We'll leave it at that.
All right.
That being said, we're bypassing all of the other nominations and moving on to consideration and action to adopt Robert's Rules of Order as a guideline for orderly and convenient conduct of the board's proceedings, otherwise known as Ted telling us what the book says to do.
I'll make a motion that we use Robert's rules as our guideline for meetings.
Moved by Mr. Laws, do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Handy. Any questions or comments from the board? All right, no questions or comments. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against, nay. Robert's Rules of Orders, we've adopted Robert's Rules of Orders. So motion's carried. All right. Now, we move to the fund. Do we have any speakers? Public comment?
Do you need me to count heads and see how many?
Listen, that camera can't see that. I'm just trying to make it,
All
no.
right.
Thank you.
You say no.
I did not receive any slips this evening, Mr. Reed.
Move on.
It's wild here in 2024, folks. It is just
All with a
Wild
smile.
West
All
going
with a
on.
smile.
Consent agenda.
Love it. All right, moving over to the consent agenda. Let's see what we have here.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as presented by the administrator.
Second.
All right, as moved by Mr. Laws and seconded by Mr. Crossan. Are there any questions or comments from the board? With no questions or comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against, nay.
This is
All right, motion carries, consent agenda is approved. Oh, let's move on to tax rate.
At this time, Emily Falcon, executive, or our chief operating and financial officer, will kind of walk us through the recommendation from the admin to the board for our tax rate.
Hold please. Okay. I'm gonna stand just so I'm standing.
So everybody can hear you?
Yes.
That was
I'll use my, I've never been a teacher voice.
Take care. Use your teacher voice then. Your mom voice.
So, tonight I'm gonna walk you through our FY '25 tax rate recommendation. The authority for this is set out in Delaware Code. You have the, honor of setting the tax rate every year. We did review this at the Citizen Finance Oversight Committee last Tuesday, and they did put forward a recommendation to adopt this rate. After this meeting, I will send the final rate to Newcastle County because it is due by this Thursday. And then the county basically issues the tax bills and collects the revenue on our behalf, and they are due by the 30th of September of each year. As an overview, the tax rate is comprised of 4 different categories. We maintain each of those categorical funds in different appropriations so that they remain segregated, and there are specific uses for each of them. The tax rate is charged on the amount per $100 of assessed value. So when your assessed value is roughly 30 to 35% of your market value, that the rate is not charged against the market rate of your house. So that is an important note and something that we talked a lot about during the referendum process earlier in the year, but I do want to just remind folks that might be watching, when you get your tax bill, it is on the assessed value of your home, not the market value of your home. Reassessment, which we also talked about during the referendum, is going on right now, and we are going to receive notification of the new rates and new information by this time next year. So next year, we will be looking at the reset process of resetting the tax rate to account for the fact that reassessment has occurred.
Emily, I'm sorry, can I ask a question before you go to the next
Sure.
slide? Where is the growth? Is it new construction?
It could, yes, new construction is basically the only way. Appeals generally do not go in our favor, so it's new growth.
Okay. Thank you.
And because of that small amount of new growth, right now, a penny on our property tax is generating about $315,000, almost $316,000. So current expense is the largest portion of the tax rate, and it's also what we call our, discretionary operating dollars. This is one of the categories that can only be increased or decreased by referendum. We are increasing this by 25 cents as a result of the referendum that was successful in February. The 1.836 number continues to include 46.8 cents that is part of the revenue sharing agreement that is the Newcastle County Tax District that has been in effect since the colonial was put in place in 1981. Debt service, this is the portion of our tax rate that is used to pay off construction debt, long-term bonds for generating new construction or innovation projects. Again, there was a successful referendum in February that included construction projects as part of what was authorized. The referendum authorized us to issue the bonds. The rate is then set based on what the bond repayment schedule requires. So the bonds are issued on the funding cycle as outlined in the state. The next slide goes over the numbers. For FY25, we are only issuing about $2.7 million of bonds. The debt service on that is about $250,000. We actually have enough cash in our debt service account that I don't need to make any increases or decreases to the rate. It can stay at the 7 cents that we had for FY24.
Say that one more time.
So because of the cash balance that we have in our debt service accounts, I am not recommending any increase to our debt service rate as a result of our ability to take on the additional debt service that we are encumbering without having to pass on any cost to our taxpayers this year.
Say it while I'm looking at the camera.
Great job, thank you.
I don't think everybody heard you.
Louder for people in that.
So, just because this, we are going to be looking at increases to the debt service rate for a number of years, figured I would put some detail to what we're looking at here. As you can see, the FY25 number, the 2.7 million that we're generating, the actuarial table that I run, shows that we needed 0.7 of a penny, and we're not going to take that because, again, that cash balance. Next year, we're issuing over $30 million worth of bonds. The increase to the tax rate for that 30 million is 15 cents. So the total estimated rate that we're going to have next year is 16.2. So you can see that the rate would naturally be going down because we are retiring some of the older debt. So instead of the rate jumping from 7 plus 15. Come on, all you math majors.
22.
Right, so it's not 22, it's 16.2 because we're retiring debt. So the impact to the taxpayer is mitigated by the fact that we have timed this so that we're retiring all of our debt when we issue new debt. So that's a good thing. And then 27, 28, 29, that takes us through the cycle of the actual funding for the projects. And these amounts are consistent with the state share. So once the CNs were issued, we got a 4-year funding cycle. No, that's fine. 5-year funding cycle. All of this is laid out. And this is what we should be expecting to receive this is not what we receive on the state side. This is the local match to what we're receiving on the state side. And then the total is the $48.7 million that was authorized in the referendum. So that's just what folks can expect from the debt service rate over the next coming years. I do want to point out, it is estimated because right now I have an estimate of what the interest rate on these bonds is going to be, but until they actually go to market and are sold, I won't be able to lock in that number, which, you know, could change it by marginal amount.
If the interest rates go up, those numbers go down.
If the interest rates go up, these numbers would increase.
For the upcoming years that are not the year that we're approving now.
Correct,
Yes.
correct. This year is
These
set.
are all projected numbers.
That is correct.
Yes. The one we're voting on now stays what it is for this year.
That is, yes, thank you for the
You're only
clarification.
voting on 1 year right now.
Correct. Yeah, this is, even though this is out years, we're only voting, these are estimated, no action is being taken on this slide in terms of your action tonight. It's only the 25 numbers.
It's beautiful.
So match tax is the third component of our tax rate. I'm not gonna read through this list of projects, but there are a number of state programs where they have, the General Assembly has given us authority to generate a local match to help support the cost of these programs. So in '23, we received an allocation of enhanced MCI funding, which is for our minor capital improvement projects, which is basically renovation, money for maintaining our buildings. In '24, there was no allocation. They've restored it in '25, so we again have enhanced minor cap dollars that we're going to be able to utilize. And there was also an athletic trainer block grant that was put into the budget that authorized us to generate a local match for that as well. So this is the year of, we've got healthy cash balances. We have cash balances sufficient in our match funds that even with accounting for the enhanced minor cap match and the athletic trainer match, I don't need to generate any increases to the tax rate to cover those added expenses. This is due partly to, wasn't sure if I had a slide, due partly to the fact that we are still dealing with vacancies, and the majority of the programs that we're matching, what we're matching is salary dollars. So we provide for the match when we set the tax rate. If those positions are vacant for any length of time, and we can't massage our staffing numbers to put somebody appropriate in those buckets, then we basically are letting the cash flow into the next year. So we are able to budget for increasing the match without having to pass that along to our taxpayer because of the cash balances that we have.
So Emily, during the forums before the referendum was passed, when it was us three up there, I think you were asked a question of, do you promise to not, increase or anything? And you gave the only answer you could, which was, I cannot promise that. I don't know what's gonna happen. But you're saying that as far as this year, we're not raising it because you looked at it responsibly and we do not need to do that. So it's one of the things I like applauding though, to say, yeah, we could not give those people the answer that they exactly wanted, but
because we're doing the right thing and what we see here, it is that. You know, we were happy that we are now passing that on to the public, that increase.
Absolutely, yeah. As I said during the referendum process, you know, we are not a bank. Our point here is not to accumulate as much money as we can. The needs that I'm projecting for next year are covered with the 10 cents. It is 10 cents for, yeah, the match tax is 10 cents. That's covering all of the projected need that we have for this year. So even though there are increased or enhanced programs, there's no need to pass anything along to the taxpayer. Absolutely. Tuition is the fourth and final component of our tax rate, and these are funds generated to support students among our special ed population whose needs are significant enough that, you know, we're allowed to generate additional funding to help support them. You can see here a list of some of the programs that we run serving those students. This list has not changed significantly. And despite the fact that we do continue to see solid numbers in our special ed population, you know, even with our overall enrollment stagnating, our special ed numbers continue to trend upward. So the need is not diminishing, but again, you know, similar to what we saw in match tax funds, we are still balancing a lot of vacancies and a lot of, you know, substitute expenses that are difficult to justify including in restricted funding lines like this. So we've utilized ESSER to cover a lot of, you know, a lot of the substitute costs rather than putting them on tuition funds. But again, we are in a good cash position, and when, you know, in working with our student services division, the needs for this year are actually, the needs for this year plus the cash that we have on hand, we're gonna take the tax rate down by 2 cents. Because, you know, realistically, we have enough cash that even if some of the projections wind up being conservative and we go over budget, we're still gonna be in a good position and able to meet our obligations into, you know, this time next year. So this is an area though where, you know, I do wanna be cautious and transparent that because the population continues to grow, to be healthy, and to throw more and more complicated needs at us, this is an area where, you know, we might see a little bit more fluctuation over time, and we might have to push it back up if demand, you know, demand or costs rise significantly in the future. So in looking at a year-to-year comparison here, the 25 cents, again, that was authorized by the referendum and is what we, you know, asked for from our taxpayers. Debt service and match are staying the same, but with tuition coming down by 2 cents, we are actually passing along a smaller increase for our taxpayers this year than was asked for during the referendum process. So from a taxpayer impact standpoint, this is the biggest phase of the operating referendum. So 26 and 27, again, we are gonna look at, you know, larger increases there as well, because we're phasing in the operating referendum with the last 2 years. And then back to the debt service schedule, we're issuing more debt, so the debt service on that is larger. Once we hit 28, it starts to level back out and basically comes back down to normalized, you know, just match tax increases, tuition tax increases, et cetera. So just coming out of a referendum, I wanted to provide a little bit more, you know, of a projection for what folks can expect leaving this year and going into 26 and 27. Any questions?
Are we, or are you, or somebody in our organization following all of the rezoning that's going on in Newcastle County and kind of tracking the impact that those rezoning may do to our finances?
I'm not following it very closely from a financial impact perspective. And my reasoning, which, you know, I'm happy to, I'm happy to be more educated than I am right now if I'm missing something. But if rezoning leads to revaluation of an existing property, automatically, I'm not aware. I thought if development happened, it would be reassessed because there was a development that occurred or
It's
something
actually
of that
the-
nature.
The ones that I'm thinking about in the Delaware City area, there's one that's actually behind Wilbur School. Was up on county council's agenda last week. I don't know whether it passed or not.
Talking about the fields?
That's a refinery fields
Yeah.
or something?
Yeah, there was a rezoning effort going for that. There's rezoning efforts going for ones down off of Port Penn Road. There's rezoning efforts going on down in the backside of Bayberry, which is part of that area, is part of our district around St. George's High School and whatnot in that area. And then I also believe there's some on Route 9 coming toward Newcastle. So if they're going from residential to business park, just as an example, what kind of impact are we gonna see on those? Is it a plus, is it a negative, what? You and I kinda had that conversation a month or so ago, you know, to see where that's at, so I think it would behoove us to be keeping an eye on those, just to see what that impact is. If it's a plus, all well and good, but if it's a negative, then we need to be aware of that.
Agreed, and I will do a little bit more digging to, you know, to try to get a better understanding of how a rezoning classification absent any actual development changes. Because essentially, I'm looking at it a little bit further down the process, because you can rezone a property and never actually do anything different with it. And then from what I understand, the valuation wouldn't be impacted unless it's rezoning it to a tax exempt category.
Well, an example is from where Frightland is at 13 in Port Penn Road. Frightland right now, they kind of pulled that off the table. They were looking at rezoning that. But from the creek there right behind Frightland all the way to the canal, that piece of property was all going up to be rezoned.
It's when they tried to do it all in one shot, wasn't it?
Yeah, yes, it's when they tried to do it all in one shot, and the county got beat up pretty bad on that. But that is going to business park, I do believe.
Okay.
So we're talking, you know, 400 or 500 acres probably that's happened with that. So what is the impact to us? Now, I just think we need to be aware of what that is.
Got it.
Just so.
It could be a
just so-
net loss, right?
It
Because
could
instead
be.
of going to
It could be.
residential and homes, it could be going to.
Yeah.
exempt.
It could be, that's what I'm saying.
But if
We
it's
have to see.
farmland right now, and it went to
It's not
residential,
farmland, it's not farmland.
I'm saying if,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They
If
did
it
away
were
with all the
farmland.
farmland stuff, but yeah, yes. We need to, whatever it's going to and coming from and whatnot, I think we need to be aware of any of that type of activity goes on in our district within Newcastle County, so that we're aware of what's happening and what kind of impact we're gonna have on it.
And to piggyback on what Mr. Laws is saying, because on your standpoint, I could see where you're like, well, whatever gets zoned, I have to just pivot from there and deal with that. But it's more, I think we have obviously seen public outcry can change everything at a drop of a hat within a week. That changed everything in that, yeah, what happened, from what happened on Facebook and everything else. And if you guys are able to notify us as the board, I've tried to more personally get involved with those type of things because that shocked me so much with it. And I was like, all right, I need to pay more attention, but especially if you guys alert us so we can start reaching out, asking what's going on. And obviously we have a new county executive that's gonna be coming into office here in January, and discussing that with them and seeing what's going on so we can be up to date of what's gonna happen is nice. So any
Okay.
information you ever have, throw it our way, you know, we will work and do what we gotta do. We'll be the voices too.
Duly noted, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board for Ms. Falcon? I think I've done enough patronizing of saying thank you that you are managing this budget very well, and we are giving them a lower tax rate than what, tax increase than what we told them they were getting last year. So that's an awesome thing to
It
say
is.
with everything that's going on. It always stinks when we have to pay more in taxes, but you know what? When we could say we're budgeting it so well that it's even lower than we said, what government ever says that? So that's awesome, thank you. So I'll have you repeat that all the time, and I hope you don't. No other questions, I'm gonna move on and ask, do I hear a motion in regards to the tax warrant that was presented to us? And please state it as,
I move that we approve the tax rate for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2024, and grant authorization to the President, Vice President, and Executive Secretary of Colonial School Board of Education to issue a tax warrant to Newcastle County Department of Finance as presented.
do I hear a second?
Second.
Oh, she got that quick. All right, as moved by Dr. Dorsey, seconded by lightning fast Mrs. Smith. Are there any questions or comments from the rest of the board? With no questions or comments, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against, nay. The tax warrant is approved. You want to go with blue ink or
Okay,
black?
will you sign
Okay.
your, got your special pen?
There you go.
You can go ahead.
Board policy.
There we go.
All right, so the next item under updates and action item is board policy manual. As the board knows, we have a policy committee that gets approved or reviewed every year in September by the board. This year, our policy committee worked through the policy manual, sections 300 and 400. They brought forward comments and review notes of item to us at the executive leadership team level. We have taken those reviews, recommendations, also added some of our own, discussed with legal counsel, and based on that all together, in July, we present recommendations to the board for policy first reads, and these are all first reads. So we have only 3 policies that are first read that have been modified, that are significant enough that we need to make them a first read. There's Teachers' Day, drug and alcohol policy, free workplace, and smoking. And in the board docs, you can see the changes are tracked to indicate the changes. And even these changes aren't uberly complex. The Teacher Day really is just adding 2 specific events to the Teacher's Day. That's an expectation. I believe it's open house and professional learning communities, I believe, are 2 terms that were added. Drug and alcohol free workplace, I believe, was cannabis and CBD were added as substances, I believe. THC. Yeah. Oh, yeah. THC. I'm just. We added some. You can see them in the board docs. And then for smoking, vaping was added as a act that we don't want to permit on campus.
Is that, talk about smoking, does that cover all tobacco products?
Yes, tobacco. It's a tobacco. It's chewing tobacco as well. Is also listed in there.
And snuff and all?
Yep, all that stuff's in there. Then the other recommendation when we reviewed these with legal counsel was that we remove the 309 rights of HIV infected employees. And then the remaining policies that are listed there, they all had no change or just a word change. For example, we used to say personnel, it now says HR. Like, we just had to make those kind of semantical changes or grammar changes. 314 will be coming soon. We're still waiting for a policy from our legal counsel based on changes to Title IX that were issued, I believe, in April. I was anticipating maybe something to share this month, but we were told it's another 2 weeks out at a minimum that they'll have the final draft to us. And I was told
Such as?
this is anti-harassment and anti-discrimination of employees. That's what this one is. That's what it's related to.
The Title IX?
Title IX, yes, sir. And so we will be, that when we present that based on the legal, based on legal counsel, it is not gonna need to be a first read, it'll be just a present for approval. It is effectively, I believe the deadline date for implementation for all these new Title I policies and procedures was August 1st. So we're not overly worried about it. We were going to present it today as just for approval because we were told it pretty much mirrors the one we have, only it just adds a little bit of more layers to it. We've already done this in 2021. No. Yeah, 2021. Betsy just did a massive Title IX policy change back recently, right around beginning of COVID. Then you're gonna see there's a new policy that we have to put in place per regulation, or per legislation, crisis plan. It's 118. And then we're also presenting as part of our We Improve efforts that are referenced in the board agenda for a later discussion. We are presenting a construction change order policy that will allow us to continue to follow through with the requirements for major capital projects, specifically those right now that are coming out of the certificate of necessity process. So those are the policies as they're presented. The first reads are all the attachments. All the other ones are not attached. They would just distract from the fact. You would have to, I don't want you to have to figure it out. Those other policies are pretty much the same as they are on the website currently. Questions?
Question, for any members of the public that might be listening. What was the thinking behind the removal of rights of HIV-infected employee?
That was from our legal counsel.
It was that we were told that it was not necessary any longer, as the way it stood and the way it's written, it's,
Because it's somewhere covered
it's,
under
Because it's
another
covered
policy?
under, because it's covered under other policies, and it was, calling out a specific classified group that is
Okay.
unnecessary.
So it's kind of redundant and,
Yes.
okay.
redundant and
And
outdated.
also, and
Right.
calls attention to an unnecessary group.
That's
Yeah.
a good point.
Yes. So,
And then, I'm sorry, for the 314 anti-harassment and anti-discrimination, you were saying that the changes are minor, going to be minor enough that it doesn't require a first
No,
and second
I'm
reading?
just giving the board a heads up that it's
Okay.
gonna look the same as the current one, which is pretty long.
Okay,
And there are gonna be some modifications to that, and we'll make sure they're highlighted in the new approval so you can see the changes. But most of it is around complaint hearing and investigations.
okay,
That has changed significantly, so much so that every employee before they left this year had to do a 29-minute training on
okay,
the new Title IX reporting and investigation process and complaint handling. Then every administrator who's technically going to be a investigator had to do, or still has to do, a 2-hour training around how to handle Title IX complaints. It's really about the complaints and investigations that's going to be modified.
It's all in compliance with the new regulations that came down.
Got
from the
Yeah.
federal.
That's why I'm saying the content is not gonna change. It's gonna have added language around how it is handled and investigated.
okay, okay.
Didn't they already have complaint and investigation?
We already had all that in there as well, yes, we did.
But this just is different.
This is more intense,
More teeth.
more,
It's
More-
in compliance with the updated federal guidelines.
it's in compliance with the updated federal regulation that came out in mid-April. So, yeah, we are following the rules,
Okay.
is the best way to say it.
The construction change order, and I'll get into it more next day or so, but is there a dollar limit that you're addressing there before you have to come back to the board for any approval?
I believe the policy does have a dollar limit in it before it has to come to the board.
Because you can always have an emergency meeting if it's a
Correct.
critical.
That's something that yes. Some of these will be, I don't wanna say post-active, but the board will has to,
Ratification.
ratification, they have to ratify some of the decisions that are under a certain dollar threshold.
Yeah, and Jeff, I know you and I have spoken about this, but for everybody else, we have to be very careful with that because we could come under an audit situation, correct, Emily? Right? We can be audited on change orders, and in the past, we as a district have gotten instant Dutch because of the way the change orders were handled.
I'll let Emily speak to that.
So, Mr. Moffett, our Director of Operations, myself, and our facility supervisor actually consulted other districts who are, actively engaged in construction projects and programs. And this policy actually mirrors the board policy of the Appoquinimink School District. The dollar values might differ slightly, but the authority being in board policy, they have stood scrutiny with audits and not had any issues.
But do you, or can you recall the dollar limit that's there?
In
That you-
what's in our policy?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
in our policy we presented was $150,000 for the board president and for the superintendent to review.
$150,000.
$50,000. And then $60,000 for a change order, a change order in addition, and then $30,000 for a basic change order that can be handled by the supervisor of facilities. And again, that's significantly lower than what Appoquinimink does, but of course they're doing full school builds. Our biggest project under the current will obviously be our athletic complex, additions at William Penn.
And the goal is that we would only utilize the superintendent and board president approval authority if waiting for a board meeting would create a delay in keeping the project moving, or a delay in a timeline. The goal would still be to bring all change orders before the board for affirmative action before it's approved, but in cases where the timeline would be impacted, the board policy we're putting in front of you gives a limited amount of authority for the board president and superintendent to act.
$150,000 is a big change for what we're gonna be doing,
Absent
total
of the,
in a
correct,
total,
correct.
in a total building construction project, $150,000 is not a big change. For the jobs the projects that we're gonna be doing, $150,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah, and one of the things we viewed is that this actually would just be put forth for any future CNs. The board policy would be in place and not need to be revisited, even for future, again, it could be built in the future, it could be future renovations for another referendum down the line. So we thought it would be more holistically kind of presented, that's not necessarily specific to these upcoming projects in the next 5 years.
I totally understand. I just have heartburn over $150,000.
We toyed with it, I will say that, we went back and forth a little bit.
Because.
And that's a reduction in what.
That was,
I understand that.
Yeah,
I totally understand
Yeah.
that, but I'm in the
it's
business.
significant, you're.
$150,000 is a big change,
It is, it is.
okay?
Yeah, we don't see anything that would come remotely close to that, minus maybe something with the athletic complex of William Penn or a larger build in the future that doesn't exist on our books right now.
But again, my point is, if something like that does come up, we have the mechanism to call an emergency.
We
board
always,
meeting to be able to do that.
Yeah,
we always
Yes.
have that prerogative.
absolutely.
I mean, it's just that, I just don't want us to get into positions that we were in the past. Not that I have most faith in everybody that's gonna be doing what's here, and I know that between the three of you that are doing it, between yourself, you, and Ted, you're gonna question all those changes. But I know there was a project in the past where a change order was approved, which we as a district ate the money, which should have went back to the contractor because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
That was a couple iterations ago.
I-
I'm not-
I-
I'm not-
I know, I
mean,
know.
That was a different mindset, and I'm not pushing back, I agree with you, but I think that we are getting away from that by being transparent and putting a policy in place for something that was never even considered in earlier.
And I agree, but the fact of the matter is we need to push back. If there's a miss by the contract,
Yep,
we as a district should not eat that money.
agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, so those are all first reads for second read, and approval in August. The next thing,
I'm sorry, one other question. So we're talking electronic mail messaging, email?
Yeah.
Not through just a text message or anything like
Correct.
that, of just, hey, I got something.
yeah, no,
Alright, it's an official.
yeah, it'll be all official communication.
I'm asking, we're stepping into a lot
Well,
of
you're,
it's being moved around, and that's all
that's
about
a
me.
second read though,
Yeah.
question, kind of, I mean, a little bit, we're getting a little bit, but to give you full context, yeah, that's what you wanna.
Your email is the other than core texting you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just make sure, it's 2024, I like asking.
Yeah.
Talking about the guy who absolutely hates that.
So the next agenda item is we would like the board to consider and act upon renewing our lease for 13 Reeds Way property. Those of you who were board members during COVID know that we had several board meetings there, because we were able to stay out of the buildings and not had to worry about, having our schools staffed and manned by custodians. So you're familiar with the place right now. That is our space for professional development and houses our district instructional coaches. The reason that this is, continues to be a value add for the district is those activities and folks are not in our schools doing that job, because what that would entail is 11 offices in buildings somewhere where people are constantly having in and outs, having to deliver professional development in libraries, classrooms, displacing locations, because we just don't have the space inside our buildings for that to happen. And then what further created a stronger ripple for that is the increased security to get in and out of our schools for these kinds of activities and events. So we are putting forward the continuation of the lease to maintain that space for another, I believe, 5 years.
Correct.
So,
That's how much per year?
The annual rent is just over $176,000.
And what is the long-term plan that when the new Leach school is done, whatever the county lets us do that, right? What's the plan for the current Leach school?
well, we've talked about that. There's a variety of pitches on the table that we've not really landed on one. They're all just spitball conversations, but that is a building that's up for consideration for use for other options.
So
I will add though that part of the reason that we are moving to a new leach facility is because of some of the maintenance required to
Yeah.
maintain the leach facility.
Well, that's where my
Yeah, so like
my next question was gonna be, is that we got ADA issues there.
Correct.
There's a slew of things going on there that we would have to consider, so that's not like an easy, that's not an easy fix. That's not like, swap out a building for a building.
No, I understand, because that's what I'm saying, is,
Yeah,
are we gonna, as part of that, we're gonna do a study to where, to, number one, bring that building up to whatever code we need for it to be, for whatever we think we might use in that space, whether it be to replace Reed's Way, okay? Plus the maintenance costs to keep that building running versus if we, is this a triple net lease?
I'm sorry, you'll have to give me context on what that is?
Are we paying all the utilities for that building?
No.
Utilities, taxes?
No.
So that $160,000, $170,000 includes all the utilities, electric, water, heat, air conditioning, all the maintenance, everything in that building,
Correct.
cleaning of that building, all that
Correct.
stuff. That's the only fee we pay for that building.
yep.
Is that accurate? Yes.
Bathrooms as well, elevator, you name it. It's all there.
So we need
We
to
have
make,
that whole stuff.
we just have to do that.
Second floor,
from a
back corner.
perspective.
And I do wanna point out that the lease, it's a 5-year lease, there is no escalation in the lease, so the $176 that we're paying next year is the same rate we'll be paying in the last year of the 5-year lease.
I do wanna say, I believe, Emily, that's something you kind of negotiated and wrangled the first contract conversation, did you not?
I wouldn't give myself credit for that, but
It was a
the
point of,
first lease that we had was also a zero escalation lease, where we had a fixed annual cost for the 5 years, and the leasing company has agreed to maintain that arrangement where we don't have any
That's
escalation.
Embry Hill, right?
that's correct.
They're doing business under a different name in the lease, which is confusing because it's 11 Reed's Way is the company name and we're leasing 13 Reed's Way. But
That's a tax.
neither here nor there.
Is there, if things were to change, is there an early out clause on that lease?
Yes, I don't believe it's said in the document in front of the board because that is an addendum to our existing lease to extend it, but the original lease itself does have a funding out clause. If we are not able to afford the lease for financial reasons, we have the ability to cancel it within a certain time frame.
But what if we were, we hopefully don't get to spot, if we were to go down in enrollment so much that we had space in one side of our buildings?
I was about to say, what's the definition of proof that we have to say that we can't afford it?
And you say there's a funding out part of it, so we have to pay to get out of it.
No, funding out meaning if we do not have funding available to continue the lease. It's a clause to get us out based on funding availability, I guess, different way to say it.
I mean, I would say that the first premise would be to get a building up to code or snuff, or to do services and things for what we use it for now, we would have to assess the term of investment in that, in a building, then enrollment could come back that we're now committing. And just a perfect example of that is those of you who know Wallace Wallen at one time was a pre-K program, early childhood Head Start Center, and a vocational arts program. It fell on the wayside, and then it got turned into this grand professional development center. Spent a ton of money on redoing the building just the way you described, and 2 years later, they needed a building for alternative school students, and it became a different program. And now all that stuff that went into it to bring it up to do exactly what we're doing at Reed's Way had to be taken because we needed to use it for schooling. So that's always that's a calculated risk on an investment
No,
that I think we would want to.
I know that, but we still have to be
Mindful of it.
mindful of what it is we're using the space for.
Yep.
And if we have empty space somewhere that we can use it for the same thing, do we need to have leases? That's all.
Yep.
That's the big old question.
How often do we use it?
Every
Every
day.
day.
Every day, all
There are
day.
staff that
There's
are,
always something.
Staff
assigned
work
there.
there, PD, people are there. I mean, you have to fight
there
to
are
get a
staff
room in there.
assigned to the facility, there are staff offices maintained there.
Interest rates going up, the price of insurance. Okay.
So, any other questions?
With no questions, do I hear a motion and if you could please try to state it as seen on the paper?
I move that we approve the second amendment to lease agreement for 13 Reed's Way, Newcastle, Delaware, for an additional term of 5 years, commencing August 1st, 2024, terminating on July 31st, 2029, as presented.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
As moved by Mrs. Smith, seconded by Mr. Handy. Do I have any questions or comments from the board? If no questions or comments, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion's carried. All right, moving on to.
So, the last
consent.
update and action item is, we improve facilities. The board knows we made a commitment to provide education, monitoring, oversight, and inform and update the public. We wanted to just share this month, first of all, the education is just an extension of the previous conversation, Mr. Laws and Board, Mr. PQ, about the change order process. We're educating the public and the board and ourselves around how that's going to look for us, since we are now entering into a world that we have not been in a long time. And we want to definitely avoid the mistakes and the perils of the past. And then the update, there's a PDF attached. Every week, Mr. Moffitt just shares with the district leadership team how progress is going at many of our renovation and construction sites across the district. Those pictures are there for the board's leisure. At this time, I'll take any questions about any of the photos you saw. I mean, they're pretty self-explanatory, and I'm pretty sure you have seen some of these and heard about these before, so.
The only thing that I would note is that none of these projects are affiliated with the referendum.
Yes.
Projects that were approved in February. This is all stuff that was in the works and funded through other means.
Yes, thank you for that clarification.
Mr. Moffitt, I'm sorry.
No, you're good, bud.
Feel free to also send invites to the board members if you ever wanna show something off.
Oh, great,
You
okay,
guys don't know.
we'll do it.
You know, I'm always down with it,
Absolutely.
so
All right.
please.
Absolutely, 100%.
Great.
Just went behind the curtains of, when you had, 88 bathrooms, just a few minutes ago, actually, like, as we're meeting today, so, always fun. I'll send some back.
That's it for the scheduled stuff from me, but I do wanna make one other announcement and share. I wanna definitely welcome Ladune
Yeah.
joining us today for her first official board meeting as a William Penn senior.
Yeah.
12th grader, get ready for the next phase. But I'm gonna let you introduce yourself, Ladune, if you wanna talk a little bit about like what you do at William Penn, just really quick, say hello to the board and the community, and we'll go from there.
Cool. Hi, I'm Ladune. At Penn, I'm a legal studies student. I do a bunch of stuff. I'm in marching band. I'm the president of our Key Club, which is great. I'm about to be the student council president. You know, I just do a bunch. I think I'm pretty involved.
You think?
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I really like Penn. I came here the beginning of my sophomore year, and like ever since then, I've loved it. Like I really do like it. People hate on it, but I love Penn, and I like Colonial. It's really fun, even though like I would say I live pretty far, but like the drive, I would say it's worth it. I like being here. I'm so glad to be, the student board representative. I'm really excited about it. I'm excited, hear all this jargon and pretend I know stuff.
That's a good word for it.
So, what you'll get before next month is Mrs. Leary she just stepped out, will kind of share with you some of the Robert's Rules of Orders, some of the language you're hearing here. And throughout your time with us, we will situate you around different board members to kind of so you get to know them, learn a little bit about them, and they'll always lean over if you have any questions. You will have every board meeting starting in August, when we have our student recognition portion, you are a third part of who we are. There's staff recognition, student recognition, and then there's you. You are going to be able to speak to the public. You'll have to submit in advance of the board meeting 7 days what you're going to talk about, because I have to put it on the website 7 days in advance and notice the public. That's a public meeting requirement that we have in the state of Delaware.
Okay.
So you're gonna learn some of these things, so you will actually have dedicated time. Now, there may be conversations that the board has throughout the year in the meetings, and there may be plenty of times for you to kind of offer your opinion up during that conversation. But once they go to vote on the item, like you heard them make a motion here tonight,
Yeah.
like I move second, and then as soon as they do that second, they then open the floor back up for questions. That's not a time for you to be, because that's a voting time, that's something where they have the conversation. But prior to that, like some of the conversations we've been having here today, that were not a vote, you may get called into the conversation frequently for a student opinion, or your thoughts, or what do you think, and how does this look at William Penn? So, just be on your toes, be ready, every now and again someone sends one your way.
And don't be afraid to ask the questions.
Yes.
Not get the right answer, but
Yeah.
Prior to a motion.
We love that.
Prior to a motion being made,
Yeah.
Mr. Laws, prior to a motion.
that is.
We don't bite.
And the one thing I will say, that our new board member, is definitely kind of holding a high standard to the board in terms of her academic prowess. I think she was being kind when she said she's involved. I just got word today that, Ladune is one of 6 students at William Penn to earn a 5 on an AP test score. AP Psychology.
Yeah.
So we are honored to be in the presence of that, because I can quite tell you, having not taken an AP class and walked past the room on a regular, I don't think that's pretty darn impressive, so congratulations.
Coincidentally, when you came to tell me that I got the student board thing, I was at AP Psych. Like I was in the AP
Oh, yeah,
Psych.
Mrs. Ford's class.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who is her AP Psych teacher, when I went to go offer her the opportunity, she's like, can I come out here? I'm like, yeah, sure. She was like, come out, and she heard it. She was so excited. But then we got even the better opportunity. We recognized Ms. Borsch as William Penn's Teacher of the Year at graduation rehearsal in front of all the seniors. Super special moment. So great little connection there, and you're right, I do remember that.
She's the district teacher.
She's the District Teacher of the Year as well. So, all right, awesome stuff. So welcome aboard, Ladune, and you're gonna have a lot of fun. Let's put it that way.
So you just told the highest ranking AP Psych student to ask us any questions she ever wants.
Somebody's gotta help you.
You're gonna have a long line, Ladune, long line. All right, that's all for me tonight.
Thank you so
Isn't that
much.
enough?
Do we have any, our members yet for the Monitoring and Oversight Committee for this
That'll be coming out in August.
August?
We are working on that right now, and the Monitoring Oversight Committee will have a draft of a path forward potentially in August to share. We're still putting together, kind of combining 2 bodies of work that we know are out there. What Red Clay, their facilities committee, has done for years, and then what we already currently do with our Citizens Finance Oversight Committee, kind of like putting those two together to make it work for Colonial, and then we'll be sharing that with the board, and then after we share it with the board, we'll start building it out probably sometime in the fall as we start having to bring projects in front of the board to share, because right now there's nothing to share, because remember that was kind of a project kind of review and conversation before and or after coming to the board.
I love that you guys are being very proactive with it and tackling this and making sure everyone feels that we are doing nothing but promoting transparency. And coming from somebody who served on an oversight committee with Emily, they're powerful committees. All anybody ever hears is, oh, it's another committee. These are powerful committees, and it is important, and a lot of people might not understand it, but it is crucial to promote transparency with that, so thank you guys for that.
So now, it'll be probably in August, Mr. Moffett will probably be kind of sharing where we are with that and possibly giving some of the feedback. It might not be finalized, because we do want to make sure, because this is new to us, we want to make sure we put something together that makes sense. Again, it will not be a policy, it's just going to be a practice that we do in the district office. So, thank you for calling that. I did have that on my notes to mention that, and I forgot, so thank you for calling that out.
Thank you. All right, moving over to the Delaware School Board Association committees. Get an update from our newly nominated representatives for each committee. Go to Ron, what do you have for DSBA updates?
The only update is the annual luncheon will be at Surf and Turf, August 10th. And I'll be
12 to 3.
12 to 3. I'll be there several times, so we'll be okay.
Ron approves. All right.
It's the Yelp seal of approval from Ron.
There you go. And Robin, what do you have for
Save
legislative?
the surf and the turf.
What?
It's July, man, that's all it is.
You know, cutting grass with it.
Got anything for legislative at all? All right, with that, and then moving on to closing, before looking to actually,
That's not the right
yeah,
one.
I got backwards.
I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. I'm not sure what happened to that.
I got
You're
this.
supposed to
Don't worry,
keep going.
I know. Just all do it all
We're
over
gonna
again.
start it all over
Yeah.
again. And
No.
she put the Pledge of Allegiance at the last.
That shit threw me out. I was like, what's wrong?
I know, I thought I had the wrong.
When are we gonna pledge again?
Yeah, we're redoing it all over again.
You messed it up, Rob. You gotta start it all
But
over.
no, more importantly, I do want to, since it is July, I will personally say, we had two great candidates who decided to run for the seat, and no matter who was elected, they were both passionate people for the school district. But I'm very happy to welcome Robin back for a new term.
Oh,
So
thank you.
congratulations for being reelected, and we love having you here on the board.
Yeah.
So, and then with that, do I have a motion to close out?
So moved.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, as moved by Mr. Laws, seconded by Dr. Dorsey. All those in favor, please state by saying aye. Aye. All those against, nay? No, of course you did. All right, it's approved. There you go.